security automation. So that you wouldn't have wanted to see some of the other candidate titles for that presentation, but crappy title, good presentation, needs no other introduction, Christopher Hoff.
Yeah, that's right. You really wouldn't want to see the other titles. So thank you very much, first of all, Vivek, for getting us back on time, but secondarily for being such an amazing leader as it relates to both cloud and our country and pushing the agenda forward. So I'm going to try to do justice here. One of the things you'll notice with Mark and Vivek's discussions about innovation, cloud computing, and the adoption cycle, especially the delivery mechanisms, a lot of focus these days talk about making things simpler with the adoption of software as a service, wherein you have no infrastructure to manage, where ultimately everything is off premises. Some of the challenges we face as enterprises, however, is we have 20, 30, 40, 50 years of legacy infrastructure and IT, and people are trying to figure out how they get from point A to point B, how they move certain things that are prime for software as a service or even platform or even infrastructure as a service off premises, but then also have to deal with the menagerie of security requirements associated with what it means to take infrastructure and make this journey over time, because it's not, in many cases, a snap of the finger activity. One of the things that occurs to me that Vivek mentioned a couple of times is the notion of continuous monitoring within the context of security. So continuous anything means that clearly there are systems in place that help us get from point A to point B in terms of measurement on a basis that it could be widely incremental in terms of what matters to you in terms of timing. But when I think continuous, I mean constant, automated use of resources. And that's a challenge because when we think about why I titled this the way I did, and ultimately what Commode computing means, to me, Commode computing is the end state we will end up with if we don't functionally, as an industry, as a community, start to develop better tools using heavy amounts of technology and automation to allow us to get to the point of essentially allowing security to be as agile, flexible, and dynamic as the workloads that it's designed to protect. And I want to avoid Commode computing. That's not anywhere I want to go to. So you've seen, and Mark been up this morning, did a great job. You see the ever-present migration or journey from mainframes to mini to micros to PCs to client server, et cetera. I thought instead of doing an evolution of computing, I would instead show an evolution of, for this analog, of notable moments in toiletry or innovation in sanitation. So you'll have to bear with me here because this topic is either going to be awesome or it's going to burst into flames. So I have no idea. So I want to talk about the history of sanitation for a bit. If we go back in time, 2500 BC, to Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus region, it was really interesting to note when I started doing research on toilets, which I hope to God nobody ever browses my Google history. But what's interesting is I found that in 2500 BC, these guys had amazingly advanced sets of drainage where drainage systems actually went into main corridors and waste was flushed away. If we kind of escalate in time, 1700, the Minoans on Crete ultimately also had the use of multiple drainage systems into a centralized sewer line. This is a long way before what we think of in terms of modern-day sanitation. There's a big gap between 1700 and, let's say, 750 BC, where the Romans started to deploy lots of these kind of open sewers and latrine systems made of rocks that would also drain into nearby rivers or streams. 750 BC, ultimately to about 500 BC, saw an interesting thing happen. People started to move into city-based domiciles, multiple stories, and unfortunately there were no drainage systems. And so if you were on the second story of a house and you wanted to kind of get rid of stuff, you would toss it out the window. Now that was problematic for lots of reasons, not the least of which is if you happen to be a passerby, you could at any time be assaulted by this, this unfortunate act. So at this point in time, at 500 BC, the Romans actually published a law called the Dejecti Effusive Act, which only in daytime you could actually be held liable for coating somebody with the unfortunates. which was kind of interesting. Didn't cover you in the nighttime, because any idiot that walks kind of through town at night, you got what you deserved. So after a while of throwing this stuff out the window, the Roman Emperor Augustus decided that the smell and it was unsightly trafficking of this stuff was bad. So he invented this thing called the cloaca, which was the precursor of the modern sewer. Totally covered. Very interesting, drained into one large sewer. About 315 AD in Rome, public toilets really took off. Not too keen on the whole privacy thing, but ultimately there were a lot of public toilets spread around. Now, if we kind of accelerate forward here in timeline by quite a bit, Sir John Harrington, in about 1596, designed the first water closet, which was the first modern flushing toilet. A series of innovations happened after that, where, for example, Bronte added the first valve flush mechanism to his invention, which was bettered again by Cummings, who, if you notice that thing down the bottom, that is an ever-present fixture in pretty much any plumbing system you see today, the S-trap, right? Differential pressure systems that helped evacuate waste. So Cummings was bettered ultimately by Brahma, who put a valve at the bottom of this thing, and that toilet design became the standard for toilet deployments pretty much for the next 100 years. So an unfortunate thing happened, however, because the adoption of toilets didn't mean that the confluent pipes also developed at the same pace. And so in the 1800s, cholera broke out in London. 14,000 dead, 55,000 dead across the entire country. But what it did was bring into law a new regulation, which basically required that with every new house, you had this compulsory sanitary arrangements, which means each new house had to have a bathroom installed in it. After that, we saw the invention by an American of toilet paper, which makes you really wonder what it was they were doing beforehand. But it dealt with the problem of the polluted water supply and cholera. And at that same point in time, about a couple years later, Thomas Crapper, and yes, that's his real name, actually set up business in England to take advantage of this newfound disposal problem of toilet paper in these new toilets. Fast forward to an unfortunate location, which is right near my house, Worcester, Massachusetts. Had the benefit of being the first chemical precipitation sewage treatment plant in the U.S. after an English plant, and it pretty much still looks the same way. If you've ever been to Worcester, you know what I mean. Some more innovation between 1900 and 1930 happened, where ultimately saw hundreds of patents being filed for new variations and spin-offs on themes and designs of toiletry. And I want to fast forward to the last couple of decades, because this is really the interesting bit that will set the rest of our conversation forward. So what do I mean? In the 80s and 90s, you saw the evolution and pop-up of the automatic hairdryer. You saw the auto flush on toilets. You saw the auto clean on toilets. You saw automatic water dispensers, automatic soap dispensers, automatic paper towel dispensers. And by the way, this is a fantastic invention. As Ferris Bueller said, if you could afford it, I highly recommend it. The Toto NeoRest 600, an amazing device. So this thing has a remote control toilet seat, heated toilet seat, stench evacuation system, front and rear water jets, and front and rear air drying system. It is like the car wash of toilets. For $5,000, it's awesome. So we've seen kind of the evolution of the adoption of technology and interesting things into that design. We also saw in 2008, this is awesome, the RSS Troom Reader. You can print out your favorite blog on toilet paper, which in some cases is a particularly appropriate use, if you've ever read mine. We've seen the Dyson. Everyone's seen this, right? It's in airports everywhere now, the hand dryer, right? You stick your hand, thing. Anyway. Then we saw the advent of the combination toilet roll dispenser and iPod boombox charging dock, which I think is awesome. Only bettered by the combination washing machine toilet. Then those wacky Japanese, the wearable Japanese space toilet. And I'm wearing one now, so it's, no, I'm just kidding. So sometimes low-tech wins. And Scott just last year came out with this amazing invention, which is toilet paper, which has no roll in the middle. Innovation at its finest. Only to be beaten by Sega, who just this year introduced Toilets, Toylets, which is, unfortunately, as it sounds, a urinal-mounted game that measures both accuracy and volume. You compete with others for high scores. If I see one of these things and any of you in a bathroom using this, that's what my iPhone camera will be used for. Horrible. All right, so why did I bring up all of this crap, right? So at the end, in the last part of the last decade or so of innovation, a whole ton of stuff happened. in restrooms, not involving senators and congressmen. However, why this is important is I got thinking. It's like I can walk into a restroom and my regional bathroom has more technology and automation and innovation in it than cloud and cloud security or security and IT security in general. Like, where is my wearable Japanese toilet, the IT security version of that, right? We don't have it. And it's annoying. It's annoying because if we're going to be able to move forward, we have to have it. So I got thinking, and I started thinking, well, there's some organizational things. We have, for example, in cloud specifically, we have security operations. We've got sysadmins. We have developers. We have the guys who ultimately run the network. Each of them serving the same goal, at least the same end goal, but they do it completely with different tools, different approaches, different techniques and technology. And that's a problem because that disconnect is fundamentally inefficient. So what it also brings to bear are issues of accountability, issues of reliability, issues of efficacy, security, cost, efficiency. And you start labeling new technologies, new disruption like cloud, and you have to then pair up deployment and delivery models like public and private, and what do they mean to security, and who manages them, who does what, and how about software, platform, and infrastructure as a service? How do I mold and change the way in which I operationalize my security? So these have brought us big challenges. Then the issue of mobility has really brought up a lot of problems, right? Where now the workloads can move, but the things we use to enforce and deploy our actual security controls haven't kept up. But fundamentally, when I thought of things in the worst case, and I think of infrastructure as a service where we take all the moving parts and somebody else manages them, it's, from a security perspective, at that end of the spectrum, it's fundamentally a packaging problem. And what I mean is we start thinking about things in ways that make us uncomfortable because the package that we now have to secure is now not just an application or an IP address, it's a bundling of resources in a virtual machine. So one of these boxes. So we're going to focus on this for the rest of the presentation a bit and get us thinking about how this packaging problem can ultimately be solved.